I'm Lola.
And I'm Mamuna. Together, we have a combined 35 years of experience within the tech scene in North America and Europe.
We talk about the highs, the lows, the WTFs of navigating the technology industry and answer your questions about navigating tech careers.
This is Lost in Tech. Lola, how are you doing?
I am so good, but I'm also in that thing where like everything that anyone's saying is like a Beyoncé track in my head. Because I went to see Beyoncé last week and I'm like, hit that record button, hit that record button. I love Beyoncé so much. Like, she's incredible. And I'm just a pure fan. And my friend got me a ticket and said, but it's in London, so you're going to have to be here. So I did a 48-hour trip to London just to go to a Beyoncé concert.
Rough life.
I'm going to have to do a lot of environmental payback for the carbon impact of that, but it was worth it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. She's incredible. Yes.
Good. I have not seen Beyonce.
If I'm just doing some dancing. You've not ever?
No.
Mamuna, I want to take you to a Beyonce concert. Maybe I'll do the same for you. Maybe one day I'll just buy a ticket and I'll be like, Mamuna, make your way. No, I'm just going to get you a ticket. I'm just going to be like, Mamuna, this is a day.
I've never had to drive to go.
Do you like her music, I guess, is the first starting point?
I like her music. I don't I don't like actively seek out all of her music.
Okay.
So I have a very expansive catalog of music I listen to, but I like your music.
Yeah. There were actually some interesting complaints from people because you had to be a fan to really enjoy this concert. She did songs that true fans love, but are like track 8 on the album, not the thing that was released. So like I saw a bunch of TikToks of people complaining she didn't do Single Ladies because it's not actually one of her best songs.
Yeah.
So it was totally missing from like the track list, or like she started with like songs from Dangerously in Love, which like, again, there are some really cool songs there, but not what people are used to hearing her perform. Yeah. And so it was it was a true fan set list. So maybe if she does like a Vegas residency where she's going to obviously do all of her top hits, that's the ticket I'll buy. And then we can go do Vegas Beyonce one day. And then, we'll have time.
Okay. I feel like I need to go back and listen to some of her songs again to
just start with Renaissance. It's a great banger album. Yeah, the latest album. It's just such a great dancing album and stuff. So like just start there. It's fine. I
will. All right.
Question for you. So this week that we're recording this, Apple's WWDC thing came out. Did you watch it? What did you think?
The Vision Pro. I like how they left it to the very end, like one last thing. And like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It was interesting. The first thing I think on everyone's mind was Oculus, right? And just like comparing the two. What were your thoughts on that specifically?
I think it blew Oculus out of the water. Like, have you tried an Oculus headset on?
Oh yeah, I have one.
They're so bulky, right? It's like it feels really big and it goes on this front way. This looked a lot slimmer and a lot cooler, but I also just really I think the thing that might be the Oculus killer is just because it's Apple, it's like automatically connected to your Apple TV and your phone and your watch, and it just fits without you having to do anything different. So I think this might be the winner.
What do you think about the price? Do you think now that the price potentially prices out a large group of people?
The price is wild, but there are people who will buy it. And those people will provide the funding for more people to keep buying it. I think the price has to come down, to be honest. But it is, it's also priced because the tech is so like innovative. So there was a data point that I was quite cool, which is like each eye thing, which is like, I don't know, 2 or 3 centimeters worth of space inside the goggles has more pixels in it than like a 4K television. So if you imagine condensing that amount of tech into that tiny, tiny space,
to your
that's
eyeball.
really expensive. Hopefully that kind of thing gets cheaper.
It should, right?
It should. I did get, we were trolling my boss at work. And so we set like a goal and we were like, hey, if we hit this business goal by December, will you buy everyone one of these things? And he was like, if we hit this goal and it's sustained for more than a month, by the time we hit December 1st, I'm going to buy everyone one. I was like, come on, team, let's go.
What are your thoughts on, so now with people, bringing this into their home, it being more accessible, thinking about like just the connectivity, you're going to see it more in just like the day-to-day lives of individuals, right? So what are your thoughts on having it be like part of that day-to-day, interacting with your children, interacting with just like one another?
Yeah, there was actually a bit in the demo video where they had like this guy with his 2 kids in the kitchen and he pushed the button and it went from like in the world to clear. I hated that because if you're like a young child at home with your parents, like we had this with masks, right? Like if you're a child interacting with a parent and you can't read their face, it's just not great, right? Like you don't really want to sell. Yeah, you don't want to sell the idea that this is how you interact with your family. But I think it is, again, better than the Oculus because in the Oculus, it's like full VR. Whereas like this is like fully inside a virtual environment and you are out of the room. Like you're physically in the room, but you are out of the room. With the Vision Pro, the thing that felt a little bit more like, okay, I can see how this works, is it was a little bit more augmented reality. So you're in the room, but you're looking at something projected on the wall, or like the glasses can be clear so someone could see your eyes through the headset. It's not great, but I feel like it's a lot better than what we see with other devices that just basically make you like a zombie in the space.
Where you're disconnected from your space.
It's I reckon in a few years, it's going to be about the same size as my glasses.
Yeah, like Google Glass was ahead of its time, right?
Google Glass, welcome back. This was the use case we were waiting for.
They're probably kicking themselves.
Yeah, they had the form factor, but they didn't have the rest of the ecosystem. And now Apple found the thing. And now I think Google Glass engineers are probably going to go over to Apple if they're not there already. And like they're just working on shrinking this device into like a slimmer, more fashion forward sense, you know?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see the adoption for it.
Yeah.
Over time, just given the price.
Yeah, I think it's got to come down and it's got to evolve. But do you watch Black Mirror?
I don't watch a lot of shows.
I know. I watch too many.
I know of it though.
It is one of the best tech TV, actually. I think it's actually like tech TV because almost all the episodes describe a dystopian future where the technology kind of went wrong. And not in the current season, like they've just come back with a new season and I can't wait to watch it. But in one of the previous seasons, there's an episode where everyone has a chip embedded inside their eye, which you can put it on a screen, but it essentially allows you to record every situation and replay real time. And so you have this mode of like, it's always recording, which is the way a lot of people live today with like Ring cameras inside the house or in their car or whatever. And then you've also got this augmented element whereby you can go into a space and then have other people share your memories and be like, oh, let me show you what happened last night. And I'm just going to play my eye recording on the TV and everyone's going to watch what you were doing last night. The episode is actually darker than that, but you know, this is a family podcast, so we won't go into the details. But I think, I mean, what's your overall sense? If you had to make a prediction after seeing it, and what it promises, do you think it's going to make it? Do you think it's good tech or bad tech? And do you reckon that you're going to have one in your house?
I mean, I want to have one just because I like tech and I want to test it out for myself and be able to like actually speak to it. I have an Oculus. And, with the Oculus, though, I feel like it's very heavy and it kind of squeezes your face and it's a bit hard. Like I get really nauseous with it. So
Same.
I can't spend the time that I'd want to spend. So I'm very curious to see if Apple's been able to solve that problem. I do think it's going to be good tech. I do think that there's going to, like with most things, right, there has to be good limits to it, like even with phones and screens.
Yeah.
Because I do think that a lot of people have, I don't know, not addictive qualities, but it can be very easy to get lost in tech.
Literally.
Yes. And so I do think that there's just a balance that has to be created, and Apple's just likely going to have to find like controls as it has done with like screens and stuff, right? It's just, there's a balance to it. What about you?
Oh, I'm so having one. I haven't been this excited about a physical device in a long time. I don't own an Oculus. I've played with it in various settings, but I get very, very motion sick with it. And I don't actually have motion sickness most of the time.
Neither do I.
I'm sure it's what I'm doing, but it just never felt enjoyable. But I'm about to buy an Apple Watch this week. And like I resisted for a long time with other devices. And I just think my love-hate with Apple is that they kind of get the whole connected experiences thing so right. That I feel like I'm always going to just have them take my money. And sometimes I love it. Sometimes I don't. I bought the AirPods after years, after everyone else had AirPods. And now like I don't use my noise cancelling over the ear headphones on a plane because the AirPods are so good at noise cancelling on the plane. And then they're just always instantly connected. So they're going to have my money. And I think, I actually think this is good tech. I can see scenarios in work settings or school environments where like everyone has these devices on, and the augmented nature of being able to interact with something, this is kind of like what films have been telling us should be possible. And you're doing it as a group and you can all see it and you can all interact with it. And I don't think the hologram thing that Microsoft was working on was ever going to be that, because it was really hard to see how you would achieve that without without a screen, like the environmental thing. But if everyone's wearing these glasses, you kind of get that, and you can still see people's eyes. You can still see their expressions. You can still laugh with them, and so I think this is probably a good example of like potentially a good tech innovation. Like we are improving how we do things, but we're doing it in a way that doesn't harm our interpersonal relationships. Maybe I'm being a bit, optimistic there, but I quite like what this might do.
I agree. I think the thing that for some reason, this use case sticks out to me, physical therapy.
Oh.
And I think there could be some really interesting use cases for this.
Yes.
I think that's just like something that's just going to be really interesting to explore.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
We have another letter. I get so excited with these. I don't know why.
It's like a little window into what people are experiencing, because on a day-to-day, people come to you with things, but this is like anonymous sometimes. You don't really get to speak with them much.
We don't know.
Come in, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Like,
what are you doing?
What is going on with this person? Also, this letter is in a domain that I was in for most of my career. It comes from the world of design. So it's kind of like, let's go. Is it your turn to read or my turn to read? I can't remember who was the last reader. Okay. I don't fully believe you, but I'm kind of like, okay.
I don't believe myself.
We'll go with it. Okay, here's a letter. Dear Lola and Mamuna, I am currently working as an individual contributor design lead for a European tech company and collaboratively build the team with the head of design. The communication between the two of us is okay, but could be better. I am trying to practice servant leadership, trying to offer help, being proactive, thinking ahead. I observe that my head of design really struggles. She's kept in many management meetings. It's not clear where my role starts and hers ends. I have feedback that she's currently a bottleneck for the team. I feel that she takes holidays at the completely wrong time. People expect her to be available and make decisions. She probably thinks I have hired seasoned people. They will figure it out by themselves. What would help me is how do I improve the communication between the two of us? how can I help her manage management better or have better communication? Anon, Europe. So, what stands out to you?
I mean, the biggest thing that's standing out to me right now is the foundation that they've set at the start of their relationship, of them working together. It feels like just communication and trust was not set as a good just base for them. And
Absolutely.
so, they didn't talk about, it sounds like they didn't talk about expectations.
Yeah.
There's no understanding of, here's where my role starts and your role ends potentially. This is how we communicate, frequency. There's no flow between them, it feels.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like they're making a couple of assumptions potentially about what they're thinking and what they're doing versus going to them and confirming or saying it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's everything. So like the two things for me is this individual and for people who don't understand, a lot of tech companies have this dual track, right? You have people managers who have people who report into them. And then you have what we call individual contributors or ICs who can also be quite senior, but they don't have any line management responsibilities. It seems clear to me that like you're a leader in the IC track, but there was never a conversation that allowed that individual, the letter writer, to know what their boundaries are. So like the fact that they're projecting assumptions, she probably thinks she hired senior people. Did she say that or not? Did she hire you?
Right.
Did you actually baseline what I'm doing here? And I think it doesn't really matter what craft you have. That lack of foundation, like you said, it's the beginning of every other point of failure in there. And it's troubling.
Yeah. It's like there's Maslow's hierarchy of something.
Needs. Yeah. Maslow's hierarchy of
and
needs.
that psychological safety at the is like the foundation, right?
Yeah.
And so if there is a lack of trust or any type of fear in there, the writer may not feel comfortable asking or saying whatever it is. And maybe even the manager may not feel comfortable communicating potentially, I don't know. They may not feel comfortable communicating. I don't know the person's. I can't speak to like whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it feels like, again, there's an opportunity to reset the relationship and just have like that foundational, like, this is how I work. This is how I communicate. This is what I expect. And have that sort of back and forth up front. So they can go forward shared to the team and say, hey, here's what you can expect from me. Here's what you can expect from the manager. Here's what you should come to both of us for. Here's what you should do yourselves. It also sets the IC up and the rest of the team up to have a strong directional set of thinking.
And the thing about psychological safety is it goes the other way as well. It's like, what happens when things start to go a little bit wonky? Like, how do you respond and react? And I will say one thing that stands out to me is I am aware that this writer literally works in a European country. So not the UK, not the US. And, as we've discussed in the past, culture plays a role, right? So there is a question about like in that culture, what are the right ways of building that psychological safety? Because it might not be the exact same in every culture, and having worked a lot in my career in Sweden and Spain, they are not like each other and they're not like the UK. So those relationship dynamics, there's also something there about like, what is the best way to set that up within that particular environment so that it's respectful, so that it's responsive, but also so that like when stuff starts to go wrong, how to escalate. Hey, I didn't understand this. Is there any way that we could have a conversation in order to, resolve it?
What about design? What about the design perspective here?
Well, the design perspective, but one thing before we get to that, I do have a nitpick from this letter writer.
Yeah.
Because I think they're male and they called out holidays from a female leader. And I'm like, work is not everything.
Yeah.
Your life, you're allowed to take holidays. And if you're a leader, I don't know about you, but there's never a convenient time to take holiday.
No.
There's always something happening.
Always.
And you need to take the time. So inappropriate timings being what they are. The second part is a lot of people take holiday because they have responsibilities outside of work that are not reflected in the way that they can work. Are they a carer? Do they look after a family member? Do they have a chronic illness? What looks like holiday to you may actually be like life to them.
Responsibilities. Yeah.
Right. And so the assumption about why they take holiday when they do can't be that they are irresponsible or not doing their job well. What has to happen is back to the point we made about like communication. Hey, is this something that needs to happen? Is there any way we can get an advance notice? How do we share a calendar? Maybe as a team, we talk about any planned time off ahead of time so we can manage milestones around when we need to be off. Is there any room for this to happen later? Like those conversations come from a place where the communication works, but the assumption and that holiday thing and what typically happens to women who usually have more caring responsibilities, that's a flag. Like you need to kill those ideas really quickly and just go back to a place of let's do good communication, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, again, when you going back to trust, if she, the manager, can trust this individual, she might open up to like what's going on. And then the individual has an opportunity to offer help or support, right? So it's not just like you're taking time off. It is, I know this responsibility, there's something, right? How can I help support you better so that the team doesn't falter or miss any deadlines, whatever it may be, and coming off as a partnership because now this individual is helping to build trust with their manager as well because they're being supportive through whatever it is that they're going through.
And sharing your own development areas. Hey, here's what I'm struggling with personally. Here's where I could use your help. Like, do you have feedback for me? So there's vulnerability in that communication, allowing her to build trust with you so that she feels. So let's talk about the design bit. Because as I've said before, I spent most of my career in design before I became officially product. And there is a real thing that happens in companies whereby tech companies today don't know how to understand the kind of umbrella that is the design craft. There are so many unique skills. There are a bunch of techniques and processes. And like a lot of people see design as like the picture in front of me. And that is the end state. And there's a lot that happens underneath it. But because of that lack of understanding, design itself kind of has this overdeveloped muscle in selling itself, right? So I've been in the situation where I've led teams and people reporting into me expect me to advocate for design in a very purist and idealistic way. And I personally opted out of that because I was like, it is all good if in this company we practice pure design and great user-centered thinking and everything starts with research and everything is perfect. That has to live within the company that you're in. It cannot stand as like this island of perfect design practice. And so I very quickly evolved my thinking to say, what is the context that I am working in? What are the problems that need to be solved? What are the business outcomes we need to gain? And then we will adapt all of it. Like all of it is flexible. There isn't a single hill you die on, because if you try and die on that hill and it does not plug in directly to the business outcome, it's a you hill, right? That's you on your own. You have to be able to adapt everything. And I think that's the same thing product managers do. That's the same thing engineering leaders do. Like, you know, you make it work within the environment. And I think there could be an element of, you know, the writer talked about the design team feeling that this head of design is not doing their job.
Yeah.
They're not in the rooms that she is in. So she may actually be building a different type of practice. She may be advocating in a different way. Where the failure point is that she clearly needs to communicate that back to the team so they know what's going on. But I do think if you spend any time on design Twitter or LinkedIn design community, there's a lot of credible, based on real experience, energy that designers are not understood, they're not supported, and they're not being fought for. But that muscle and that noise actually makes the problem worse, because then companies feel like, show me your value, don't tell me your value. And unless you're willing to adapt to show me, then you're just a noisy, super overheady practice. And like, I don't need that. And it's again, I've lived in that space. I have a lot of empathy for this team and how they might be navigating being in a large tech company. It's quite possible that engineers are everybody's heroes and designers are just people who make things take 10 times longer, right? And you get that. That's inbound. That's real energy that exists. And as an individual, you're going to respond to that. You're going to want to be like, no, I have value. But
Of
that
course.
tension when you're in leadership, that's a really tough tension. And I think for the person who wrote in and their boss, they've got to get a lot closer because they've got to manage that problem together for the rest of the team. And it's not an easy, and there isn't one size fits all. There isn't like one magic bullet process that like everyone do this and it fixes. It's like it is unique to each environment and each case. No matter how much experience you have to take each case for its own merits and reassess, like, where are you starting? Where do you expect to be? How's it going to work? And, kind of think about it differently.
That's a great summary there. Well, speaking of summaries, maybe we should think about summarizing our advice for our listeners.
Yes. Communication.
Right. Communication. Yeah. So I think the first thing is calling it whatever it is in the room, like just saying, okay, go to your manager.
Yeah.
This is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Reset the relationship, help to think about building that trust. So here's what I'm noticing. How can we get through this together?
Yeah.
I think starting with your own thing where you see yourself improving is a good way to kind of lower any tensions in the room and open up communication. What do you think?
And and I think the baseline of from this point onwards, reset. Hey, let's talk about how we work together. Hey, let's set some boundaries. Hey, let's build a communication plan for the team so that what we agree is known by them so they know what to expect from us. And I think being able to lean into that regularly is it still where we're at. And I think becoming an ally in that challenge with the head of design of like, what problems are you facing in that organization so that you do feel like you're at least working to the same plan. That same communication baseline will allow you to be part of the solution that they might be working on. And so it's worth investing time in kind of that reset so that you can actually move forward cohesively.
Yes. One last thing, which I found when I started like getting higher as a leader, is that it gets very lonely towards the top because a lot, like more and more people forget that you're human.
Yes.
And, there's not that question of like, how are you doing or how can I help you? And so I think even just those basic things where a person is like, oh, how can I help it is just amazing, right? Because you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Like I can actually ask for help and I can actually like spread some of this around. And so I think really finding ways, even as I see asking to take things off, because even that's like a career advancement opportunity, right? Like you're able to take on responsibility. I think it just shows that partnership.
Yeah. And I, like you said, leaders, it's lonely also because you can't share everything.
Yes.
You can't tell everyone what's going on all the time. Yeah. That transparency, it's a hard line to walk where you're a transparent leader who is not freaking out the team, for example, because there was a discussion of budget cuts. Or there's a discussion that we might kill this project, but the decision hasn't been taken. So you're not going to tell people that discussion is happening. So those things become, they might look like distance. They might look like a lack of communication, but they are real scenarios that a leader finds themselves in where you can't know everything, however much you want to know. And you probably shouldn't. If they're a good leader, they're not telling you everything.
Yeah.
Full stop. Thank you so much, letter writer. Hopefully that advice was useful and that you could take it away into the next thing. So Mamuna, what are you learning about right now? What's on your learning plate?
Yeah. So with moving, not too much, but one thing I have been very curious about and sort of starting to dive into is the concept of deep fakes. And the reason I kept kind of touching on this was because I kept kind of falling for them. Like I'd see an image or I'd see a video.
Yes.
I was like, is this real or is this fake? And then my husband would be like, oh, that's not real. Like, that's not real. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's interesting with Midjourney and just like AI popping up. People are able to produce like songs from different artists that aren't real. And so I've just been wanting to learn more about the technology and just how they're planning on regulating that over time. It's just something that's been in the back of my mind is something to dig into.
We should totally come back to a future episode and dig into that, because the thing that we're doing right now makes it much easier for someone to deep fake you and I, right? Here we are on video. here are our real voices. Somebody, I'm not that I'm giving anyone ideas because you really shouldn't do this.
Don't do it.
But like the idea of building content that sounds like and looks like us and mimics us, but is not by us and is not saying things that we would ever say. I am paranoid about that. I'm trying not to hold myself back, but yeah, I'd love to send me some links as you're learning because I'm like, I'm here. I want to absorb as well at the same time.
How about yourself?
I'm still in regs land. I'm still that girl who's learning about business regulations. And, you know, as everyone knows, I work in blockchain. So there's this intersection of regulation and blockchain is a sensitive one. The good challenge for me, though, is like I'm used to building in my career consumer products. So like things I can say, I built the thing that is in your hand. In this role, we are the infrastructure layer. So the actual questions that I have to ask are slightly different, and the answers I'm seeking and solutions I need to come up with are slightly different. So there's a bit of a steeper learning curve for me there, where it's like, oh, this thing that I spent most of my career worrying about doesn't apply to the infrastructure, but it might apply to someone who builds on the infrastructure. So I should be aware of it. But in this role, I don't need to index on that. Yeah. So I'm trying to feel my way around like the different reframe. And as always, I sleep deeply every night with all of the neurons and the brain connections that have been made. But it's fun. It's fun.
Are there interesting resources that you have found that you think are worth sharing?
Do you know what? It's still a trash heap of information out there. You know, probably the most interesting resource for me has been the ability to find a random thing. So one of the things that our legal team does at work, which I love, is you can throw like, here is a random article with legalese, or here's like the breakdown of this thing. And they will give you a summary of like what it actually means in plain text. And I'm like, you guys are literally like my Wikipedia right now. Unfortunately, that is not a public resource, but it is useful. And another person on my team is also using take a whole screen dump of a page, put it into ChatGPT and just like explain it like I'm 5, and then ChatGPT exports and stuff. So that's the resource, is use ChatGPT to simplify the things that you're reading and learning. So
that's a good suggestion.
We've made this show for you, and we want to hear your stories. We have our combined 35 years experience in tech. We have an incredible bank of experts to call on. We are your safe space. So send us your tech challenges and we'll help you create some draft decisions through some real talk.
You've been listening to me, Mamuna Oladipo.
And me, Oyelayo-Pearson.
Edited and produced by me, Michael Blissa, with theme music by 031 Mash.
Email us at help@lostintechpodcast.com or DM us at lostintechpod.